So today I want to do a comparison that I've been wanting to do for a little while now. We're going to be comparing a laptop versus a mini PC. Not just any laptop, this is the HP Victus 15, and it's not just any mini PC, it's this Minis Forum UM780 XTX. This is my favorite mini PC on the market right now. Keep in mind though that the configurations of these two systems are going to be slightly different than their stock configurations. The UM780 XTX, as it is configured for me, has 32 gigabytes of 5600 megahertz RAM, and it has 4 terabytes in total of SSD storage with two 2 terabyte SSDs. Directly from Minis Forum or from Amazon, you can get the system with multiple configurations. You can get all the way down to a bare bones system, or you can get a system that has 64 gigabytes and 1 terabyte of storage. This highest end configuration currently on Amazon is selling for around $650. But as I said, the version that I have has 32 gigabytes of RAM. This won't affect the performance in pretty much anything that I'm going to be testing here today, but they do have a version of this system that comes with 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD, and that sells for $570. As for the HP Victus, when you buy it from Walmart, you can get it for $600, but it only comes with 8 gigabytes of RAM, and that's single channel memory. This is going to pretty drastically affect the performance in certain titles, as my previous video has shown. So as configured here, it does have 32 gigabytes of storage, but it still has the stock 512 gigabyte SSD. That means that as I have it configured, you're looking at more of a price around $680, and that's before tax. So already there's going to be a pretty noticeable difference in terms of price here, but it makes sense. Mini PCs and laptops kind of serve two different markets, though there is some slight overlap to the point where people will kind of question whether they should buy one or the other. In terms of specs, the Minis Forum here has a Ryzen 7 7840HS 8-core Zen 4 processor. That means it has the Radeon RX 780M graphics chip, but it does not have dedicated graphics. As for the HP Victus, it has the Ryzen 5 8645HS. That's a Zen 4 based 6-core 12-thread processor, and it has the RTX 4050 dedicated graphics. So already you can see a major difference there, where one is using integrated graphics, the other one has a full graphics card. So not exactly a high-end one. Still, once you configure this system with 32 gigabytes of RAM, the price isn't all that different from a high-end mini PC like this. You're looking at a price difference that will usually at most be about $100. And keep in mind that the laptop also does come with a 144 Hz display, though it isn't a very bright one. And also, since it's a laptop, it has a battery, and having a battery pretty much means that you are buying a system that comes with a built-in UPS. For the mini PC, your power goes out, your computer out. At least with a laptop, your power goes out, you're kind of just on battery now. So the price difference between the two isn't necessarily just the cost of the graphics card, it's the screen, it's the keyboard, the trackpad, everything that you need to essentially have a functional computer that you can carry around with you. But let's see what the overall raw performance is in terms of gaming. So the first game that we're taking a look at is Black Myth Wukong, here running with the high in-game graphics settings. We are using FSR on the AMD system, and we are using DLSS on the HP Victus, and frame generation is on for both systems. The high graphics settings is pretty demanding on the 780M, and I'm surprised that it even did as well as it did here, but it's clear that the RTX 4050 is doing a lot to give the HP laptop here fantastic levels of performance. And the added benefit of using DLSS is that visually speaking, it does look better, though I did also forget to disable the motion blur, but after retesting it, motion blur did not affect any of the performance numbers at all. But if you disable motion blur on it, the same as the AMD system, it just overall looks better. And add on to the fact that we're getting a higher level of performance, it's a pretty massive uplift in terms of performance. We're looking at pretty much double in both the 1% lows and the FPS average. And that's going to make a very meaningful difference if you're trying to use this 2 or 3 years down the line for gaming. Of course, the next game that I decided to take a look at was Tiny Tina's Wonderland, here running with the high-end game graphics settings, and we are using FSR on both systems, and it's set to the quality preset. The game doesn't have DLSS. The benefit of FSR is that you can use it on any system, so if a game doesn't have DLSS and only has FSR, you can still use it on the RTX 4050. Thankfully, FSR isn't even necessary here, since with the quality preset, we're getting really great results on the HP Victus, to the point where we really don't even need FSR on. Meanwhile, on the 780M, we're really looking more towards dropping the FSR setting down to balanced or even quality to try to get ourselves up to 60 FPS, let alone getting into the triple digits like the RTX 4050 system is getting at. So again, massive differences in terms of overall performance. And one thing that you might notice also is that the mini PC ends up using up more memory. It's just because of the fact that the iGPU is using system memory as video memory. So in general, mini PCs like that or laptops end up actually having a lot of memory utilization just because both things are being loaded up. A game that really exemplified the massive difference between the two systems is Rainbow Six Siege. Here running with the very high graphics settings, not ultra, but very high. And on the 780M system, we are using FSR 2.0 at the ultra quality preset. And on the HP Victus, we are using DLSS at the quality setting. And the performance between the two systems here is just night and day. It's not even really comparable. While the game is certainly playable on both systems, it's very clear that the HP Victus is just significantly more powerful when it comes to gaming here. And this trend continues on to the next game here. This is Avatar: The Frontiers of Pandora, and we're running the game at the lowest in-game graphics settings. We are using FSR 3.0. The game does have DLSS, but I used FSR 3.0 on both systems so that you can use frame generation on both of them. And the 780M is falling apart, while the RTX 4050 is actually doing a pretty decent job here. This is the first time that I've ever tested one of these systems that actually gave a great result in Avatar. It really seems like you need to have a dedicated graphics card if you want to get a good result here. I would not be surprised if AMD's new APUs still aren't able to give a good result when it comes to the 1% lows in this title. And the last title we're going to be taking a look at is Counter-Strike 2. We're running with the lowest in-game graphics settings, but we are not using FSR at all on either system. And this one was an interesting one just because after playing multiple matches on here, it was actually the game that I tested the most because it kept giving me the weirdest results. What I found consistently was the fact that the mini PC would give consistently the best results in terms of the 1% lows. The laptop almost always had the higher FPS average. And I can only assume that the reason this is happening is just because of the fact that if you notice on both systems, the GPU is not at 100% utilization. We're CPU limited. And even though the Ryzen 5 here is one generation ahead since it's an 8000 series versus a 7000 series, they're the exact same architecture. They're both Zen 4. The 7840 HS is identical to the 8845 HS. And as a consequence of that, that means that this Ryzen 5 is going to perform identically to the Ryzen 5 chip that is right below the 7840 HS. So that means that the Ryzen 7 here has just slightly higher single core performance because of its higher stock max boost. So it gives a better result in terms of the 1% lows, but the all-around better GPU on the HP Victus is effectively giving it a higher FPS average. A very interesting result. So after seeing those numbers, it becomes pretty clear that if you care about gaming at all, the laptop is kind of the way to go. Keep in mind though that this is a special deal going on right now at Walmart. And even then, to get this to be at a actual decent level, you're gonna have to spend at least a little bit of money to get 16 gigabytes of RAM, or preferably going with a full 32 gigabytes. That being said, there is some merit to the mini PC. For one, if you spent the same amount of money on a mini PC as you will on this laptop to get it to 32 gigabytes of RAM, you could have yourself a mini PC that has 64 gigabytes of RAM, and you could have a 4 terabyte SSD in there. You could also just go with 32 gigabytes and put in a 4 terabyte SSD and a 2 terabyte SSD. The benefit of this is the fact that you do have the 2 NVMe slots as opposed to the single NVMe slot that is on this HP Victus. And that's not even mentioning the fact that we do have a better CPU overall on the mini PC. If we go based off of the Cinebench scores, there's a noticeable improvement in the multi-core performance and a slight difference in single core. Not really enough to make that drastic of a difference though. One great thing about the laptop is the fact that you do get the 144 Hz display, you do get the battery, so you essentially get a UPS for your PC. And of course, you get the built-in trackpad, the keyboard, all of the stuff that gives you a full functional computer there. But of course, you also have to keep in mind that this system is very loud in comparison to the mini PC, since it has to cool a lot more components. And each component also uses just noticeably more power. Still, if I was on the market today for a single computer that will run my entire life, I would end up going with this HP Victus. Right now, it's just such a good deal. But what we're looking at here is essentially the difference between getting yourself a high-end Honda Civic versus a base model Corvette. Because if you want to spend this much money, you can get yourself a mini PC that is really tricked out. While if you're spending this much money on this laptop, you're really just getting a baseline from where you will build up on, because you're going to want to upgrade the RAM and you're going to want to upgrade the SSD down the line. Let me know what you think down below. I'll catch you guys in the next one.